1. This story takes place in November of the year 2000. My best friend and I, one Thursday night, decided it would be fun to take the car I just bought for a spin. A fire-red 1987 Camaro. The night started normal. We ate some food, listened to some music, and chilled on a church parking lot. We were trying to figure out where to go. We didn't realize that we were parked in front of a statue of the Virgin Mary because the second the clock hit 10 p.m., the statue's lights turned on. It kind of freaked us out because we thought someone was going to call the cops for trespassing or something. We just started driving, taking random left and right turns. In the middle of all this, I reset the tripometer on the car to gauge the fuel efficiency of the car. After some time, we found ourselves in rural country. There wasn't many houses or shops. In fact, there was no streetlights. After driving a bit ways more, my buddy noticed that the houses on the side of the street were either all dark or lit by candlelight on the windows. We just assumed there was a power outage. As I was driving, I felt the car pull more and make odd noises. I pulled over briefly to see if something was wrong, and immediately I noticed I was on a dirt road. Before I got back in the car and continued driving, something caught my attention. The air around me felt heavy, and it almost felt like I was looking at everything through a haze. Like the feeling when your glasses fog up. I wasn't wearing glasses. We continued driving for about 5 more minutes, and we hit a dead end. At this dead end was a bigger house than we had seen. The house was sealed off by a gate. We could see people inside sitting by the candlelight. Not wanting to be a bother, we just made a U-turn and made our way back up the same road. About 2 minutes into driving, my buddy's attention is drawn to the sky. One part of the sky looked like the sun was rising. He stuck his head out the window for a better look, and yep, it was that. He also described the same feeling as the air feeling heavy and the haze. As we continued driving, I noticed the street is now lit up. Not only that, but there is now pavement. I turned on my high beams to make sure that maybe one side of the road was paved, and sure enough, they were both paved. As we continued driving, we also noticed that the houses now have light and electricity. We also spotted a gas station that was lit up, which we know we didn't pass the first time because I really needed gas. We pulled into the gas station to fill up and ask for directions home. The attendant says to go down the road we just went, and take a left because it leads to a major highway. We told him we just came from there and it was a dead end. He said he just came from that way to start his shift, and at 10 o'clock there isn't any traffic. My buddy and I both said at the same time, 10 p.m., what time is it now? He said 10:32 p.m. This made us really start thinking outside the box because we were on the road easily almost 2 hours. I checked my tripometer and it says 172 kilometers. No way we covered that much in that little time. Taking the attendant's advice, we head down the road and sure enough, it wasn't a dead end. We made our way home and that was that. The next day we tried to replicate the exact same left and rights, and we just ended up at the same gas station. 2. I started posting my weird experiences here yesterday. Lurking for a year, and I love your theories, so I've decided to post. This one is about dreams. It doesn't happen all the time. But when it does, it is very unique and specific. It started seriously after high school. Before it was random, simple, everyday things like, oh, that happened. But it's everyday situations, processes of thoughts, etc. This is one out of nowhere, a specific one. Not the result of my thoughts, nor everyday places. There was a lake we used to go to sometimes during the summer. Part of the road to this lake was curved. I had a dream that I'm driving a car there alone. There was a long curve where you can see the other part. It was like the letter C. In my dream, a very big and long pack of wolves were running towards me on that curve. I stopped my car, and in my dream I am out of my car, suddenly trying to escape because they look very dangerous. I am panicking. there reaching me in the last second, I managed to enter the car and lock the door. And in my lap there was this baby wolf sitting looking at me straight in the eyes. And then I woke up. In reality, 1 month later, 5 of us were driving toward that lake. We were not going to the lake, but to this town that was behind the lake for a visit with the family of my boyfriend's sister's husband. My boyfriend was driving, his sister and her baby and her husband. When we started our trip, a police officer stopped our car, saw the baby in the back. It lasted a few seconds. He let us go when he saw the baby. I have no idea why. When we approached the part of the road that I remembered from my dream, I actually started telling my boyfriend's sister about it. On that exact place where my car was in my dream, suddenly we saw a very long double-tank truck entering that curve too fast. The truck tanks are losing control, and they are actually ripping our side of the road. My boyfriend reacted, thank the gods, quickly, and stopped the car very strong, and it was only a matter of seconds from those cars hitting us and clearing us off the road and off the hill. It was horrible watching. Tanks were actually going towards us on our side of the road, and we actually just sat there and screamed waiting for them to hit us. Everything was seconds, but it feels like it lasted for minutes. Right in front of us, right when they were about to hit us, they stopped, or came back. Can't remember clearly because that was one of the times where I actually did feel my legs how scared I was. In my dreams, those tanks and trucks were wolves. Like danger on that place, you just switch wolves with tanks and the scenario is the same. Everything is the same except for me driving. Baby wolf in my lap was actually her baby. The police officer stopped us, saw the baby and let us go. Those few seconds saved our lives. If he hadn't stopped us, we would be right under those tanks. What the fuck are the dreams? Why did I dream that? It's not like I could have changed it. This is not the road I take often to dream about. I have so many weird dreams like this one that actually happened to me. It's always symbolic. 3. Okay. Myself and my co-worker check into a hotel, days in, after work. We work out of town in the oil fields. We check in at the front desk and then go back out the side door to grab our bags. We decide to go out the side door where the truck is parked instead of the front door where we came in. We walk down the hallway and go through the last door to where the staircase and exit should be. When we walk through, we enter a small space with 2 doors, a locked storage room and an exit. My co-worker says to me, "No stairs in this place," and tries the locked door looking for them. It's a 4-story inn. We had a room on the top floor. Most hotels built like this have a staircase on each side of the building. Anyways, he tries the other door to see if maybe they are through there. It's locked. It was a space no bigger than 6 by 4. We were literally bumping shoulders looking for stairs. There was just 2 doors and walls. We go out the side exit, and he says once again, "No stairs, eh?" We're Canadian. I look back through the door for another peek, and definitely none. So we grab our stuff out of the truck, go back in through the front door, and as we're waiting for the elevator, we ask the front desk girl where are the stairs. She looks at us like we're stupid and points to the end of the hall, and points to the door we went through. We are like, okay. We take the elevator, drop off bags, decide to go grab something to eat. Now we take the stairs down to see where that leads us. Get to the bottom of the stairs and boom, we are in the room that we just tried. So we go out the exit. By now we are tripping out. We decide to go back in the front and try to go through the door once again to see what we missed. And boom, go through the door. Now the tiny space has a big old staircase. No way we could have missed it. It was literally beside the locked door we were trying to open. I would have had to be standing in front of the staircase while he was trying the other door. We were just in there bumping shoulders like it was a small space that could fit like only 3 people in there, maybe. It got my mind bugging out. We both agree there was definitely not any stairs when we first went through. And maybe just a coincidence, but just a few minutes prior to the whole thing, I was texting a girl, and the last thing I asked her was, get this, have you ever heard of the Mandela effect? 4. This happened about 10 years ago when I was visiting my father over the summer. That side of my family is really southern, and everyone in the house must say goodbye to each other before the night is over. Not a terribly important detail, but really is the catalyst to the following events. I was outside talking to my friends from back home on my cell, so it was a little later when I made it back inside the house. Closer to 10 p.m. The living room is the first room you enter from the front door. I sigh with relief. Yay, everyone went to bed. And set up Twilight Princess on my GameCube. Before I got too comfortable, I decided to walk down the hallway and tell my dad goodnight. I yell it through his door and he asked me to check on my little sister, who was 4 at the time. I walked down to the end of the hall and opened her door. She's passed out completely, so I whisper goodnight and close her door and triumphantly march to the living room to get some well-deserved gaming done. Back in the living room now, and I'm alarmed to find my little sister just sitting in the dark on the couch, eyes open but with glossy black stare and face illuminated by the TV screen. I asked if she's okay and no response. 2 things came to mind. Either 1, she slipped past me and is tricking me. She's not that clever or sneaky. And 2, the same thing, but she's sleepwalking. As far as I knew, that wasn't a common thing or even something I'd ever heard her do before. Plus, not sneaky at all. I try not to think about how creepy kids are, and I carefully scoop her up in my arms so that I don't startle her awake. We make it through the hall. She's not moving or reacting, and she felt pretty cold. I shift her weight over my shoulder so I could swing her door open, and I can practically feel my heart stop. I see my sister laying in bed still. I panic. My vision gets a red haze for a second, and all I can feel is my heart thumping in fear. I look down at what I'm holding, and it's just a bundled-up comforter. I was going to use to sleep on that tonight. I no longer felt the weight of a 4-year-old child in my arms. I just kind of stared blankly back and forth between the comforter in my arm and my sister in the bed. Very confused, I sort of just went and played my game. I couldn't come up with a decent explanation, and Zelda is a good game to play for calming your nerves. So I just did that all night while glancing over at the couch I found her in. I nonchalantly brought up sleepwalking during conversation the next day, and asked if any of us had experienced it before. But my dad just said no, not to his knowledge. No one in the family has done that. Nowadays I'm 100% positive I experienced some weird glitch, and witnessed the system correcting itself. Have you had any similar experiences, or maybe have some knowledge to share that could help provide more insight? Edit. To clarify. Didn't do drugs or drink or smoke at the time. Was 14. Not my first day visiting my dad. In other words, I did no traveling that day, and it's only a 3-hour drive, so no jet lag or anything like that. I had a really awesome sleep the night before. Visiting my dad also meant seeing my grandma, so I was well fed. No gas lines or carbon monoxide to worry about. I have no mental conditions to this day. The only thing I experience out of the normal would be sleep paralysis on occasion. I've considered doppelgangers before, but from what I've read they all seem very grumpy and aren't so complacent or petrified. Unless it works differently for children. Really glad the glitch fixed itself, because having 2 of my sister would have been a bit overkill. 5. This morning I wrecked my car. It was such a silly way to wreck, but it happened. I started up a hill and there was a truck and trailer coming up a hill in front of me. I was a good few cars' lengths behind him, but I still slowed down because he was moving slowly. He quickly made the turn. I sped up. Then he stopped suddenly, leaving the trailer sitting out in the road. I slammed on my brakes and tried to stop, but still ended up sliding into him. The next couple seconds were a bit blurry, but I remember seeing the front of my car slam into the trailer, and the part of the trailer that comes down to drive vehicles, lawnmowers or whatever up onto it, excuse my terminology, came through my windshield. The whole crash only lasted a few seconds, but I know my car had went under the end of the trailer, jarring the piece loose, and it swinging into my windshield, hitting me in the face. The next thing I remember is feeling the metal slam into my face and tasting blood. My face hurt badly, and my 2-year-old was screaming in the back seat. My head was hurting worse than any pain I had ever felt. but I had to make sure he was okay. I laid my seat back enough to twist around to look at him. He was safely buckled in his car seat and had no signs of injury. He was obviously just scared, as he had been asleep a few minutes prior to this. When he saw my face, he screamed louder and started crying even more. He was screaming, "Mommy! Mommy!" through sobs. He was crying so hard, he was going silent between breaths. The last thing I remember is hearing the guy I hit calling an ambulance. As I drifted off, I could hear my baby screaming, but I didn't have the strength to get to him. The next thing I know, I'm waking up in a panic, and my eyes pop open, and I'm hitting the trailer again. This time it was different. The trailer twisted and swung in the opposite direction, throwing a riding lawnmower off into a ditch. I quickly turned around, and my 2-year-old was still asleep in the back seat. I was so confused and scared. My first thought was that I had died and I was stuck in a loop of crashing into this trailer. I know how silly that sounds, but that was the first conclusion my mind gathered. I stood there dumbfounded for what seemed like forever, until I heard the guy I hit telling me to please say something, or he was calling 911. I turned to him and told him I was fine. There wasn't a scratch on me, and my 2-year-old was sleeping peacefully in the back seat. This time several things were different. Instead of hitting him directly front center of my car, I only hit him on the driver's side. And I wasn't injured at all, not a single scratch, where previously my face had been hit and I felt pains in different parts of my body. There were vehicles stopped behind me, and things continued as they normally would after a wreck. The cops were called and they started cleaning up the accident. The lady in the car behind me finally got out and came to ask if my little guy and I wanted to sit in her car until all was done. I declined, and she asked if I was sure I was okay. She said she just knew I'd be hurt because she saw the trailer come through my windshield. When she looked at the front of my car and saw my windshield still intact, she too was dumbfounded. I don't know if this was a glitch, a divine intervention, or a coincidence. Did my mind simply fill in the blanks and she perceived the accident differently than what actually happened? I don't know, but I'm so very thankful my baby and I are both unharmed. Edit regarding the lady who witnessed it. The hill we were going up is also in a curve, so with her being at the bottom, she was able to see from a side view. She just looked at the windshield and said, I'm thankful y'all are okay. I just knew you were hurt. From where I was parked, I was sure that trailer had come through your windshield." We didn't talk any more about it after that. I didn't want to sound crazy, but it was somehow reassuring knowing that someone else witnessed it too. Looking at the wreck, you could definitely tell it hadn't touched my windshield or even came close. The trailer was scooted sideways at an angle, and I must have turned the wheel to the right for it to catch at the driver's side. I'm certain had I kept the wheel straight, it would have happened with it coming in the windshield. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 5 True Glitch in the Matrix Stories, episode 66. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Now before we go any further, I want to give a shout out to the No Inner Monologue podcast. The author of story number 1 is one of the individuals on that podcast. It's a group of friends just sitting around. I'm not sure how often it goes out. Looks like it might be weekly, actually. Yeah, it looks like it might be weekly. Certainly has been recently. So a weekly podcast, a group of friends sitting around, chit-chatting. I think there's 4 of them. Yeah, 4 people. I'm looking at the thumbnail. Kind of little sketches of their faces. The most recent episode, episode 16. So there's a good few to go through. They will seem to run at least an hour. Yep, a little over about an hour. And I've been listening to it as I was editing, and I'm actually quite enjoying it. I'm only 20 minutes in. Recent episode is called Rue Britannia, and it is talking about they're Canadian, and they're talking about the royal wedding, which I live in the UK, and I had no idea it was actually this week. Also, I'm kind of neutral on the whole thing, to be honest with you. I mean, unless I'm marrying one of them, doesn't really matter to me. Yep. And it's very unlikely that you're ever going to hear of a Prince Hellfreezer or a Duke Hellfreezer, although that would sound freaking awesome. If it ever happens, though, I will legally change my name to Hellfreezer so that they have to, and when they give me a title, I can be Duke Hellfreezer or Lord Hellfreezer. That'd be nice, get myself a peerage. Okay. Anyway, I will include a link to that podcast next to story number 1 in the description. So if you guys are interested, then please do head on over, check it out. It'll be a SoundCloud link, and if you have a SoundCloud account, you can just click subscribe, and obviously you'll see it in your feed every week. Okay, and with that, I think I'll head off for now because I have another video to make. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.